service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Would you please join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have the roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Okay, before we approve the agenda, I'd like to make an adjustment. We need to remove item 5D, approval of purchase of chip seal rock, page 61. I would like to move that to item 7C. So I would like a motion to approve an amended agenda, moving item 5D to 7C.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now is the time for business from the public. Is there any business from the public tonight? We will also be accepting public testimony in the public hearings. Would like looking for a motion to approve the amended consent calendar as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amended consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our first public hearing tonight is item 6A. This is a continuation of a public hearing on ordinance 18-04, taxing marijuana sales, and refer to the voters. Is there any additional information from staff?
One thing I did want to point out in response to some questions at our last meeting on the collection of this, most public entities in this state that have done this tax have contracted with the State of Oregon Department of Revenue, and the tax is collected as part of the tax that the retailer is paying to the state, and then they just pay the additional fee, and then the state distributes it, because there was some concern about cash and so on being involved. And so that's how most entities have handled it, and I would expect that if the voters approved this, that this county would be looking at doing something similar.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for that information, because I know the commissioners had some concerns about that, and it's very sensible. And so thank you for that information. Is there any other information from staff, and is that all from staff?
You know, one more thing, I'm sorry, that I should say, the motion, the agenda item tonight before you is really twofold. It's first approving the ordinance, should you choose to do so, and then after the ordinance is approved, then you have to approve the resolution and the ballot title referring that ordinance to the voters, because this particular ordinance is required by law to be referred to the voters.
Okay. Well, I thank you again for that, because I basically, if we were to proceed to a motion, I need to have some wording on that emotion.
It's on the
What that motion's
back of
called.
your agenda.
Page,
On
is that
your
page
agenda, I should say.
110? Page 110?
I was looking at my script and it wasn't on there. Okay. So, okay, well, that's fine. Is there any public testimony? If you wish to testify, come forward, give your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Is anybody who would like to testify to this issue? Seeing no public comment, I will now close the public hearing, and we'll go into a discussion and possible motion.
Chair Lee, if we don't have discussion, I could move to adopt ordinance 2018-04, taxing marijuana sales, adopt the resolution approving the ballot title and referring the matter to the voters, and conduct the second reading of ordinance 2018-04 by short title only. Second.
We have a motion to second to adopt ordinance 2018-04, taxing marijuana sales, adopt the resolution approving the ballot title and referring the matter to the voters, and conduct the second reading of ordinance 2018-04 by short title only. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. May I have the second reading by title only?
In the matter of adopting a tax on the retail sale of marijuana items within unincorporated Clatsop County.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to ordinance 18-03, adopted revised FEMA maps. Page 125. This is the time set for a public hearing on ordinance 18-03, adopting revised FEMA maps. May I have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director. In December of 2017, staff was notified that FEMA will be adopting new flood insurance rate maps and a new flood insurance study. Those changes to the maps will affect approximately 700 properties within the unincorporated county that are along the coastline. In addition to the map changes, FEMA is also requesting that staff update the language in its code regarding development in the floodplain. The most significant changes that are being requested relate to removing 7 exemptions for which permits are now not required. It also includes specific languages or language for how structures constructed within the floodplain must be built. We did discuss this last one meeting ago and had a presentation on this. We also brought it to the planning board back in March. The board voted 4-1 to recommend that the commission approve the changes and the adoption of the map panels and the flood insurance study. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Chair Lee, I have some if you don't.
Commissioner?
Well, I understand it was a pretty contentious hearing, so well done for the staff and the Planning Commission to do that. As I understood it, the main thrust, I got 2 things out of reading this that gave me question. One is I wondered, with all of these additional permits that are going to be required, are there staffing implications for your department? And number 2, are there any other options? Because I was interested that somebody proposed that there be some kind of alternative consortium insurance developed among affected state entities, and I just didn't know if you had any feedback on that for me.
With regard to the second part of your question, I'm not familiar with any movements to move forward with the consortium. Right now, because the county does voluntarily choose to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, we are required to make these changes to our code and to adopt the updated maps. With regard to your first question, since these structures are currently not permitted, we really don't know how many are being constructed in the floodplain, so I really don't have a number for you at this point in time. I would suspect, given the amount of floodplain permits we do issue every year, that staff would be adequate. Most people choose not to build in the floodplain if they can avoid it.
I just know I've been hearing grumbling at other meetings or people sitting beside me talking about how it's more red tape, it's more intervention and control of their lives, and they're not real happy with that, and they're just concerned that if they needed to do something, there might be delays in their ability to do it, and the cost of doing it might interfere with their business models. So I just wanted to raise those issues so we could consider them.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any questions for staff? May we have the first reading by short title only?
Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I probably do. Ordinance 1803, an ordinance adopting legislative text amendments to the Land and Water Development and Use Ordinance 80-14, Section 4.000, Flood Hazard Overlay, adopting revised FEMA flood insurance rate map panels for Clatsop County, Oregon, dated June 20th, 2018, and adopting the revised flood insurance study number 41007CV001B and number 41007CV002B, revised June 20th, 2018, version number 2.3.2.0 for unincorporated areas of Clatsop County, Oregon.
Thank you for that reading of the short title. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest report connected to this? I will now open the public hearing. If you wish to testify, come forward and give your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. I know of one guest tonight. Come on up. State your name and address for the record, please. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beeb Ashcroft at 985 North Wahana Road in Seaside, Oregon. I have a written statement that I wanted to enter in, and I will go ahead and read from it now as it's brief. My husband and I own property that will be impacted by this ordinance, and we have serious concerns about the financial burden this will place on us due to the changes regarding development and permits. This ordinance will now require that we obtain a permit for every single repair, regardless of how minor. Our home was built in 1929 and requires continual routine maintenance, so this is of huge concern. Some specific examples of activities that will now require a permit include, quote, minor repairs or improvements to existing structures. This is vague enough that it could mean everything from painting your house to replacing screws. Quote, storage of equipment and material associated with residential uses. This is also extremely vague. Could mean we'd have to get a permit anytime we wanted to, say, move our lawnmower. I urge you to seek clarification from FEMA and negotiate the terms of what activities would reasonably be covered by a permit, because as it stands, this is an unreasonable overreach on FEMA's part and places an untenable financial burden on homeowners. I would like FEMA to explain how storing my lawnmower is going to affect my flood liability in any way, and why it is necessary for them to unreasonably force the county into accepting any changes they decide to make by holding our flood insurance ransom. I am completely sympathetic to the necessity of passing an ordinance so that our area does not lose this flood insurance, and appreciate the unfair position FEMA is putting the county in, which is why I think it is all the more important that this be negotiated in order to avoid unnecessary financial burdens on homeowners such as myself. Unfortunately for me, I can't even afford to purchase flood insurance, so it is doubly painful to be financially punished by this ordinance and not even qualify for the one benefit it would bring. If FEMA continued to insist that there is no room for compromise or negotiation on the terms of the definition of development, then I ask the county to lower the price on obtaining a permit for basic everyday repairs. Otherwise, many local homeowners will have to put off doing the most basic maintenance until they can afford the $80+ permit fee every single time, and this places an especially large burden on any person who owns a home built prior to 1980. There has to be some compromise that the county can come up with so we can maintain the area's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program without placing an unreasonable financial burden on local citizens. And that is my statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great evening. Is there any staff response to the public comment?
Yes, staff did try to negotiate with FEMA. The response that we received in a nutshell was that these are mandatory requirements because of our participation in the flood insurance program, that failure to adopt these requested changes would jeopardize our ability to do so in the future.
Okay. Is there any further questions for staff?
I have a question. So is Wahana Road in the county? I mean, it's in the county, but is it on county land or is it in Seaside?
Portions of it are in an unincorporated county and parts are in Seaside.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I was just wondering if you might comment on what the public comment was. Is it that exacting that they get in trouble for how they store their lawnmower? I mean, what's your? I don't know. I mean, I think this is something that we need to figure out. Is that something you guys have already talked about, or?
We have not had internal discussions about this. Our intent, and I will state this clearly for the public record, is not to require permits for painting, not to require permits for changing out screws, not to require permits if you want to park your lawnmower, move your lawnmower, and things like that. What I've heard from FEMA is that they want us to remove all the exemptions, but that they're not going to be out there enforcing it. That's what I've heard from FEMA.
Well, who's going to be doing the enforcement part? I can't imagine FEMA is going to be sending people out to doing any enforcement.
I don't see FEMA doing that either, and staff does not have the county does not have the staff nor the inclination to go out and enforce things like painting and lawnmowers and things like that.
So that's possibly one fear that they can put to rest?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There was a comment about someplace in here, and I was looking for it, I can't find it, something about the cost of providing the documentation to secure that. It wasn't so much the $80 permit, but the cost of providing the data to support the permit request. I know it's hypothetical, so it may be difficult to respond to that.
Well, for example, if you were, right now we exempt small accessory structures, so things like sheds under 200 square feet. if they came into today, we would tell them no permit. After June 20th, they would have a permit, and as part of that, they would need to receive an elevation certificate, showing where it was in relation to the base flood elevation. That will require a surveyor, and that is an additional cost that people will be required to bear, yes.
Okay, so if we go ahead and pass this, and staff gets a flood of community, or however many responses you get from the public that say, look, this is really a problem, because we all have constituents who come to us and say, look, this is a problem, this creates a burden on us, can you do something? Is there any way to collect data about how much of a problem it is, and if there does appear to be some kind of alternative way of providing for cheaper flood insurance, because that's why we want to belong to this flood insurance program, is so that people get cheaper flood insurance, right?
Right.
It's supposed to save people money. It's supposed to be a good thing. Can we carry forward with getting more public input, or capturing that public input, or being part of developing alternatives? Is that feasible, or we're just going to pass it and we're done and it's like that forever?
Well, nothing with FEMA is forever, but with regard to the insurance, I don't know that I'm qualified to speak to that. I'm not familiar enough with, market insurance and market rates and how that whole process works. The woman who spoke this evening, though, raised a good point about possibly eliminating fees or having reduced fees for these types of permits, because right now they aren't paying anything, obviously. And I think that's a very valid request, and that is something that I would like to discuss with the county manager and bring back to you at the next meeting, if I could, please.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks to the public for appearing, and thanks for staff for responding.
And there's probably many more besides them that can't afford the flood insurance. Statistically, we're trying to lower the rates for the people that do have flood insurance. So it'd be very interesting to see, of those people you're lowering the rates for that are in that flood area, how many of them actually have the flood insurance. It'd be very interesting, because there's perhaps 50% without it. Just a guess.
Yeah. Sarah?
I have a question. It's a little convoluted, but so am I correct in understanding that if there's a FEMA declared disaster, say for a flood, and you don't have flood insurance, still then FEMA can help you? But will these structures, based on this new language and overlay, will they not be part of any benefit if it's a FEMA declared disaster?
When you say part of any benefit, do you mean, I'm not sure I understand your question.
And I could misunderstand this, but I thought people who have flood insurance, they can obtain through their flood insurance benefit. People who don't, but if it is a FEMA declared disaster, they can obtain help still with FEMA. That was what I understood in the 2007 storm. So if that is correct, my question is, people who are then outside of the area, or based on the new language, and will they not get any help?
I do not know the answer to that question. I can check on that and bring that back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for staff? Thank you. Council, I got a question here. According to my agenda item summary, it says here that we have a recommended motion. And I'm not sure if that's incorrect, because are we just to conduct the first reading? See that? That's not right.
No, you would just
Yeah.
continue
Yeah,
the meeting
that's right.
continue the hearing till the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you for the input tonight. The public hearing will be continued to May 9th. Thank you.
So Chair Lee, does that, the first reading, is this the first reading or no?
This is the first reading.
So this is officially, we're conducting the first reading, and then the next meeting will be a second reading?
The second meeting is where we had conduct the second reading and move towards a motion.
So on the second meeting is when we do the motion
Yes.
to pass it?
That would, yeah.
Okay.
It's just I think there's just a mistake made in the recommended motion in the agenda summary.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I asked for the clarification, because it
Yeah, I
confused
just
me
wanted
too.
to clarify my
I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I'm going to move on to the business agenda.
Okay,
First-
can I- wait, just one more?
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner, go ahead, go right ahead.
Sorry, I had a circle around page 192 where Gail apparently said a legal opinion would be helpful in informing the Board of Commissioners of the implications of their decision. And I thought, that's a heads up, but I didn't quite understand it.
On what line?
It's on page 192, line 44 and 45. Sometimes I can't.
Oh, I see, that's yeah.
Anytime it says get a legal opinion, I think that's a good idea to do it.
Yeah, I understand that. I've gotten informal legal opinion about this because I've been paying attention to FEMA for what's been going on since they started the Biggert Waters Act. And, you know, this all comes out of Katrina, is really how this all started. And FEMA's been working for that long on revising these rules. To answer your question, Commissioner Thompson, Council, did you have I think there has been some legal opinions.
Those would be by your Land Use Council, Chris Crean, and
Yeah.
I'm going to look at Gail to see if you have anything in the file or have received anything, or if he's planning on having one for the next meeting.
Okay, we can have one for next meeting. Again, the basic bottom line of this is we either adopt or we don't, and we either continue in the flood insurance program or we don't. That's really the bottom line.
That's the quick and dirty. Thanks.
I think it's important to also reiterate what Planning Commission Chair Francis said, is that, in his words, our hands are kind of tied here.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm uncomfortable making this kind of decision where we really don't have an option. And so that's just one of the pieces of dealing with what we're dealing with here, so.
May I make a comment also? I think that given what we see in terms of natural disasters around the country, we don't know in the future how FEMA may change. This is coming from FEMA at this present time. Isn't that correct? I mean,
Correct.
in the future, we really don't know what things will bring. I just came back from the Board of Forestry meeting today in Salem, and the way they were talking about fires, which I will talk more about in my commission meeting, we're heading into times that things are going to be changing. So this may change too.
Yeah. So if you're collecting data, fine.
Thank you for your report. I appreciate your work. We're going to move to the business agenda. Our first item is the approval of sheriff's return of sale, page 257. May I have the staff report, please? Good evening, Serpa.
Good evening, Chair Lee and members of the board. As I promised at your last board meeting, I will bring to you tonight the sheriff's return of sale from my auction held on March 27th. The total monies collected at that auction was $276,700. All of the payments were made by 5 p.m. on the day of the sale, and the costs expended are listed below. They included the notice in the Daily Asturian, postage, legal fees, recording of the affidavit of publication, staff time, lock changes, and recording of the deeds, for a total of $25,119.69. And as you may see, the staff time and the lock changes are much greater than previously. We took in 6 improved properties this time. A lot of them in disrepair. We had some ejectments that we had to do and lock changes, so that took a lot of staff time and a lot of time spent at the properties. So that's why that is much greater than usual. So the net balance after the auction to be distributed is $250,580.31, and I am asking for your board to approve this.
All right, do we have any questions for staff?
No, I move to adopt the resolution in order approving the sheriff's return of sale.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution order approving the sheriff's return of sale. Seeing no further deliberations, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Our next item is item 7B, appointment to the Planning Commission, page 279. Thank you.
Okay.
Just before we get started, are any of the candidates for Planning Commission here tonight? Okay.
Okay.
May I have the staff report, please?
Yes. The Planning Commission is comprised of 7 members. We currently have 1 position that is vacant for a term that would expire on June of 2020. We received 3 applicants, David Bew of 35210 Orchard Lane, Dr. Frank Mansfield, 35173 Willette Lane, and Robert Strickland, 90603 Highway 101. The Planning Commission bylaws do have criteria that must be met with regard to the membership makeup, and that includes no more than 2 members who are in incorporated areas, no more than 2 who are engaged principally in buying, selling, or developing of real estate, and no more than 2 voting members are supposed to be engaged in the same kind of occupation. You'll see that the board currently has a property manager, a construction person, land surveyor, and a real estate broker, so we've already exceeded our 2 in the land development area. We also have 2 retired members as well. Of the 3 applicants, we do have 1 who's a construction foreman and 2 who are retired. We do have options for the board or for the commission to consider. One would be to appoint one of these applicants to fill the vacant position. The other is to table the decision and request that staff reopen the recruitment period. Staff is recommending option 1 to appoint one of these applicants to the Clatsop County Planning Commission to fill a term that ends on June 30th, 2020. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So Chair Lee, if I may.
Please.
I see that Tom Merrill is a construction person and David Bew is a construction supervisor. I'm sorry, construction foreman. Is that considered the same thing or not?
Any profession involved in the buying, selling, or developing of land.
So-
But we're already exceeding that requirement, so.
So that would kind of eliminate Mr. Bew because we already have a land surveyor, construction, and construction, so we only get 2 from each.
Yeah,
So
Right.
I think that unfortunately would disqualify that candidate.
that's what I was thinking.
And so we have 2 choices between Dr. Mansfield and Mr. Strickland. I know Mr. Strickland has served us before. I'm just going to open the conversation up here. Does anybody have any questions or?
Well, this is really embarrassing because I've served on the Planning Commission with Robert Strickland and I serve on the BOPTA with Dr. Mansfield, so. I mean, and they're both extremely bright, extremely capable people. I'm having a hard time choosing between the 2 of them. So that's what I'm going to say. And
Okay.
listen to what everybody else
Well, that wasn't very
says.
helpful.
It's
I
hard,
understand.
they're
It is.
both
They're both, it sounds
good
like.
choices.
Ms. Presley, was she in unincorporated area or incorporated area?
She was in the unincorporated area.
Unincorporated? And then the 2, Dr. Mansfield and Robert Strickland, are they both in unincorporated areas?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
So Dr. Mansfield already is currently serving on the,
Board of Property Tax Appeals, and I found out that there had been changes in local budget laws since I had last looked at it. Apparently it has something to say about people who serve on the BOPTA and any constraints on that. So I don't know if there are any constraints on a Board of Property Tax Appeals person serving on any other public body, or if it's only the Budget Committee. So I just don't know about that.
I did check that before we submitted the paperwork for the commission to review, and as far as we've been able to determine, there is no conflict. He could serve on both.
Well, from what I know of Robert Strickland in the community, he seems to be very dedicated to serving his community. I'm comfortable with Robert Strickland. I don't know Dr. Frank Mansfield, so.
And Robert has experience on the Planning
There's a
Commission.
lot of experience, a lot of experience.
Okay.
Okay, I think, looking around, I think somebody might make a motion here.
Yeah, I
Maybe-
will.
I can make a go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I move to appoint Robert Strickland to the Clatsop County Planning Commission to fill a term that ends in June 30th, 2020.
I would second that.
We have a motion, a second, to appoint Robert Strickland to the Clatsop County Planning Commission to fill a term that ends on June 30th, 2020. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who applied. It's really heartwarming to see the interest in the position. It's
Absolutely,
important.
thank you for that comment. Okay, let's see, we're going to move on to our final item, which is the amended business agenda item, item 7C, which is coming off the consent calendar, which is the approval of contracts for maintenance rock purchases, page 19. This was alerted to me, I think it's mostly just a clarification, because one of the businesses has changed hands or something. What's the,
Yes,
On
good
which
evening,
page?
Commissioners. I'm Ted McLean, the Assistant Public Works Director, filling in for Michael tonight. We requested quotes for oil rock, which is our surfacing rock, and after we put together our quotes and recommended Teven Fisher Quarries, in the process of that, they were taken over by Knife River Corporation Northwest, and Knife River has accepted the conditions of our contract and the pricing, so we would like to recommend that change. And
so basically, we're just going to, the Teven Quarry has been bought by the, how do you spell the name?
Knife River,
Knife River.
Yeah.
With a K.
yep.
Who owns Knife River? Where is that coming out of?
Knife River Corporation Northwest, they have a lot of holdings. You probably see them in Scappoose. The quarry there in Scappoose is Knife River. I'm not sure where all they're
Yep.
out
So
of.
they just bought the quarry from
Yeah.
Teven Brothers.
Yeah.
And which quarry is this? Where's it at?
This is in Seaside,
Oh, it's the one there in Seaside, just
Yeah.
we go over the bridge?
yeah, just before the Cannon Beach Junction,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, the recommended motion will simply be changed to the chip seal contract from Teven and Fisher Quarry LLC. It'll be changed to Knife River LLC. So that's what we need to do, and that's what the recommended motion looks like.
Are they an LLC, or is that the,
It's Knife River Corporation Northwest is
Okay,
how
let's just drop the LLC because it may not, we'll just go Knife River Corporation Northwest.
okay, so Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract for purchase of chip seal rock from Knife River Corporation Northwest and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve contract for purchase of chip seal rock from Knife River Corporation Northwest and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. Seeing no further deliberations, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to commissioners' reports. Commissioner Thompson.
There are a lot of things I could say, but let me just tell everybody how wonderful it is to be out listening to my bosses, because my bosses are the voters in District 5, which is the whole southern half of Clatsop County. And so part of getting elected or reelected is to go out and knock on doors and listen to people's hopes and dreams and fears and concerns, and it's really heartwarming. It's heartwarming to listen to what people have to say about all that and to reaffirm everybody's hope in democracy flourishing here. And that's my report.
Commissioner Sullivan.
May I go out of order? I'm not quite ready.
Commissioner Nebeker.
Yeah. Let's see. So I attended the Arts Council meeting, as you may have seen in the April 13th issue of the Daily Astorian. There's a public art trail inventory from Astoria to the California border that is seeking to connect Oregon's 27 communities. So with art, public art. Let's see. State has 1% for the arts, and Oregon counties have a percent for the arts. And so there was a question raised about if we would need an ordinance or if it would be possible for any new, like renovations or improvements to our public buildings to have a percent for the arts. So the state has it, some counties have it. I don't know that our county has that.
Would only apply in the unincorporated area, of course. The cities already have that. Some of the cities do.
Okay,
And it would just be a public building built in the county, which
we don't have
aren't
that.
too many.
Maybe parks? I don't know, possibly.
Beautiful signposts along the way.
And frankly, the county could do that by, if it's, because there aren't going to be too many buildings, I wouldn't think, that weren't county-owned. So the county could certainly do that as its own policy. And then as far as an ordinance, that would apply to other public entities that chose to build something in the unincorporated county, if any public entity ever did.
What is this regarding? I missed something here.
Well, just, the question was raised because, I mean, throughout the states, it's pretty common. Different counties, like King County has 3% for the arts, meaning if a public building is built or renovated, a campus, all sorts of things, then of that construction cost, a certain percentage goes towards art installation.
Oh, that's like the Tillamook wanting to do 1% of construction for the homeless.
Yeah, it's like that.
Okay.
So, something to consider. Would that have to be, the county could just do that? We wouldn't have to put it to a vote for the voters, or how would that work?
Well, obviously for a county-built building, the county could, of course, do as it wished. As far as the imposing it on other, it sounds like your plan or suggestion was only other public buildings, not individual residences, or,
No,
you know,
no,
they'd
no,
have to
no.
be.
Not no, it's public.
I would have to look at whether a vote was required. I don't believe one would be.
Okay, it would be good to know. So for instance, this is a county building, but it would be governed by the city?
Yes. I mean, obviously, the county could choose as it wished to do, you know, if in building a building that the county owned, it wanted to set aside 1% of the cost for making sure there was art in it, it certainly can. But as far as being governed, you're governed by the jurisdiction where you're getting your building permit.
Okay, and so you're saying that the city of...
For instance, if Cannon Beach has I can't remember how much percent for the arts, but they have a very robust program for the arts. And if the county wanted to build something within the city limits of Cannon Beach, it would be paying a percentage, you know, dedicating a percentage of its cost for the arts.
So and you're saying Astoria has this?
I don't know if Astoria does.
Oh, okay. All right, because I was wondering, because this building was renovated and there's no art.
I could
So
certainly see what other jurisdictions have that. I don't know. I know Cannon Beach does, but I don't know on any.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, and let's see. The Arts and Prosperity Study results were presented to the Astoria City Council and the Seaside Downtown Development Association. And it was reported that people were quite surprised with the information and very interested in the results. And the next one will be to the City of Warrenton. And the Royal Nebuchadnezzar Arts Scholarship application deadline is the first Monday in May. And there was a rousing discussion about the arts and education. So that's it.
Commissioner Clement?
the ODFW and the allocation of the funding, the funds that are sitting at the OFW specifically allocated for gillnet fishermen affected by the ban on the fishing in the main stem of the Columbia. Meetings are we're still meeting. And there's what we thought would be finished by the end of the year. We were thinking even Thanksgiving. We're now into April. When we first were told about the funding that was just there waiting for the county to be allocated to the fishermen who could prove, permit holders that could prove that they were economically affected by this, we thought it would be very simple. We were, I'm not going to say misled, but we maybe didn't understand properly because it's becoming a very long, drawn-out thing, and we're not getting too far. So I have a call in to the manager of the fish division at ODFW to sort of speak to him a little bit about what maybe we're missing or what it is we need, or if I can maybe speak to him one-on-one to, instead of a setting where he's on the speaker and everybody's sort of throwing comments to him. So I'll see what I can do there. I just want to understand it a little bit more. It's not as simple as we thought. So one of the issues is how will they prove it? And proving something when you're self-employed, especially as seasonally as this is a little bit more challenging. So that's sort of where we're at.
Commissioner Clement, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So is the program, so if a commercial fisherman says, I have a $100,000 loss, what they're asking is for them to prove that?
It's not really a program.
Okay.
There's a clump of money sitting there for us, apparently,
Okay.
and for the fishermen with permit holders that were affected by the ban.
Okay.
And it's going to expire.
And then the clump of money
Right.
will go away?
Correct. So ODFW informed the counties that have fishermen that were affected by this to say, we have this money and it's sitting here. At least this is what we understood. And here you go. Just give us an application and it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sit down and speak, a lot of issues start to arise.
Mm-hmm.
And who will be in charge of getting it to them? How will you prove it? Will we require tax returns? What will we require? And how will you know if you were really negatively affected? And if you have a permit in Washington and Oregon on the lower main stem, do you also get that? Or so there's a whole, it's almost, I feel as if a little bit of a can of worms. I think it could have been really done a lot more simple but he has to report back to ODFW with the fact that we know what we're doing here, and he needs to feel confident that we do know what we're doing.
Do you feel like they are listening to your input?
Yes, the board is, or the group is made up of two emotional people, that have valid concerns, but they're emotionally connected to it. So one of them's a fish processor and one of them's a fisherman. So it's hard because they are beat up a little bit, I'd say, and they're just having a little bit, and then one is a fish processor, so the fish processor gets, well, how are you going to benefit from this? And so, there's a whole, it's challenging.
And it does
It's
get
not
emotional
a lot of money.
when it's someone's livelihood, it always tends to be emotional too.
But it's not a lot of money. So when we split it all up, it's not a lot of money.
How much
So,
money is
Go
it?
away soon?
well, we don't exactly know.
You
yet.
don't, well, they haven't
But-
given guidelines?
Well, they have a little bit, but I'm not sure that there's a,
How
that figure.
vague.
but it's there, and, yeah, it's hard to have a committee of people that, it's good, because it's safeguarding and transparent, but it's taking a long time.
And they're kind of natural competitors, if I hear you.
A bit, but I just go back to, well, there's a clump of money here, and you can have it, and can you prove to us that you have these permit holders? We do. And then it's like, well, do you want us to collect the data and then send it to you that way, or do you want each person to call you and give you that data, or what does the form look like? Should it be a generalized form? Should everybody have their own form? Those sort of things, which it was, I think, sort of should have been done by ODFW prior to bringing it to us, to say, well, here's your form, we need this filled out, it looks like this. As soon as you fill that out and you can prove and attach the slip, and it goes, and we give you the money and you give it to John over there.
It's done.
But,
No, too easy.
yeah, so
Okay.
I'll keep, I can go sometimes, other times I have to call and say what happened today and get the spiel, so,
Do they have a deadline?
well, there was a deadline, but I don't know if the deadline is now no more deadline, or because we're having trouble, so I don't know. So, interesting deadline. The giving spirit is alive and well. We, at the Astoria Middle School, had a rat-infested black mold high jump mat. They're very, very expensive. We had no athletes doing the high jump this year because it was not usable. So our wonderful athletic director of the whole Astoria school system asked some people, and Nygaard Logging stepped up to donate us a brand new mat. So thank you to them. And it doesn't hurt to ask. So there's a run on the river May 20th. All proceeds go to benefit Astoria Parks and Recreation and the Community Foundation scholarships. They provide health and wellness scholarship to families who can't afford it. May 20th on the river. Last year they raised $20,000 and 1,000 scholarships were given. So I think you can walk it too. So you can check that out. That's it.
Okay. I have two items. I have a memo here from County Manager Moore that I'm going to read into the record. And there's a reason he's not here today. And this is his reason. Unfortunately, I find myself in a position of having to take steps to protect myself from the abusive and hostile work environment being imposed on me by Commissioners Thompson and Sullivan. One of the primary weapons that they use against me is to make their verbal punching bag at board and county commissioner meetings. As a result, for my own protection, I will not be attending BOCC meetings for the foreseeable future. It is extremely unfortunate this is the situation that I find myself in, but based on our discussion, I know that you understand my need to take whatever actions are necessary to protect myself from further damage. And this is it's very distressing. The second item. Yeah, I'm not going to. In July of 2017, as the Board of County Commissioners of Clatsop County, I had to write to Commissioner Thompson regarding her behavior towards county employees. Unfortunately, there has been continued to be failure on your part to refrain from distressing interaction with county staff. On Monday, well, at the beginning of April, you apparently called an employee and directed the employee not to inform the employee supervisor of your call, which would have been a violation of policy for the employee. Your call has caused significant distress to the employee. Such misconduct may result in legal or financial liability for the county. Given the repeated nature of your actions, the Board of Commissioners of Clatsop County, to protect county staff and prevent financial liability, will direct appropriate action be taken to limit your interaction with non-county management staff. It seems Commissioner Thompson has had a contempt and disregard for the Home Rule Charter as long as that she has served in her current position. There's not much that I can do, and there's not much the board can do. But I am in a position I can remove Commissioner Thompson from any liaison appointments that interact with county staff. I have a copy of the letter that was written by the employee. And she says that Commissioner Thompson said that she receives threatening emails from county management and that it will not end, and it will end up in court, and it doesn't want me to have to be in court, as she is sure this is my livelihood, and even if it was not as this position, that I would need a good reference from this job. So, you know, you cannot threaten employees. And where are these? I'd like to see these threatening emails from county management. This is unacceptable behavior, and I want it to stop. And the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
I have not.
Meeting's adjourned. Yeah. I might. Yeah, that's about all I can do.
Is this